You're not tired of talking about the movie, are you?
No, I love
I'm
this
only
movie. I
kidding.
love this movie.
I'm only kidding. Well, let's talk about Giving Hope, which of course is a true story.
Mhm.
Why did you decide to become involved in the project?
I read the script and I was so moved by Dr. Nicola Mitchell's story. I was moved by the script and emotionally moved. I had to put it down a few times, take a moment, then come back to it. It's I have a personal connection to mentorship. I've been involved in mentorship organizations for most of my life. I've been a mentor myself. I've been a mentee myself. The theme of the way she turned trauma into power, um, just it, it's very courageous that she tells her story, um, and that she has used her influence the way she has to affect girls all across the country. And I just, and also I was, I was just stunned by the fact that, she's in her 40s and doing the work right now, and that we could honor her and celebrate her work now while she's here and involved. I
Mhm.
really just, after I read the script, I just wanted to meet her. And then after I met her, you know, yes, 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 please, please, please. And I hope I do it justice.
Yeah. Well, you were great in the role. I enjoyed the movie a lot.
Mhm.
Um, so you spoke with her then, and sort of what were you looking for? Really, some of her mannerisms, or what her, you know, what was that thing
Yes,
like?
yes. I wanted I wanted to talk to her. I wanted to know what, she wanted out of the story, and, also wanted obviously her blessing. There's one thing when Barbara Fisher brought me to her and brought me to the project, and I'd worked with Barbara before, and I needed Nicola's blessing. And I wanted to connect to her just on a personal level. And then beyond that, yeah, getting to know her. She's as an individual, she has some qualities that I've seen in other women that I really admire, that do incredible work, very powerful work like this, where she's so powerful and so loving at the same time. There's just this um, sort of slow, very direct, focused way that she talks and moves in the world. And I just find that so fascinating, and especially in a world where it's like, when you think of powerful people who are really changing things or moving, you think, of all these very like male attributes.
Mm.
And but there's something unique about her, and the way that she does what she does, that I wanted to um portray.
Had you read any of her books?
Yes, yes, I did. That was part of my, not all. I still haven't read all because she's very prolific.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have to be a pretty fast reader to get all of that
Mhm.
done at the time. Is it more difficult for you as an actor to play a real person than, say, a fictional character?
Um, it's, some of the process is similar, but then the weight of the responsibility is different. It's not, all from the writer and my imagination. It really is wanting to get her story right. Get it right. There's a different um there's a in that way, there's like a different level of expectation that I
Yeah.
put on myself, for sure.
Hmm. Did you and she talk about what keeps her going in this advocacy, and what inspires, or who inspires her to, sort of persevere and get through? She survived so many horrible experiences, in her life. What what do you think kept her going?
I think, I mean, not to speak for her, my opinion of, I think she's a storyteller. And I think, uh, that evolved into telling her own story. And there's incredible healing and power in that. I also think that the love that she pours onto the girls and women that she mentors is part of her healing. I think um, I think that's how she heals. And because you reopen trauma by telling your story, but that connection that she has with the girls in her group, which lasts throughout their lives, you know, for years and decades, some who are mothers themselves now and adult women, she keeps those relationships, and I think that is her healing.
Mm-hmm. Today is International Women's Day. That's March 8th. So I think it's very fitting that we talk about her. And I talk to you because I'm really in awe of you with your acting and what you've done in your career so far and your advocacy. What women do you have in your life that inspire you and sort of encourage you to keep persevering and in all that you do? And talk a little bit about your advocacy.
Yeah, I am inspired. I'm very lucky to have many women in my life who inspire me, starting with my mother, my grandmother who passed last year. Just incredible women, so strong and so much wisdom. I also find great strength in my peers, my sisters, my friends. I love the company of women. um, and I think we find strength in each other. Um, my advocacy work has come out of trauma that I've experienced, and which was also kind of a connective tissue, I think, for me in this story, understanding how sharing your story, even though it's scary and painful, can turn you can turn trauma into power. You realize, like, I'm not the only one. You open up conversations and you realize, oh my gosh, I'm telling my story, and this allows somebody to tell theirs to me. Um, and there's this process of telling the truth, letting blame lie where it needs to lie, and not, we tend to blame ourselves when we don't let it out. That's been my experience, and that was, I think, definitely also what drew me to the story, and what I think made me think that I had something to give to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I need to mention too that Girls Who Brunch, that's still going on. Is that
It is
correct?
still, yes, it is. And I mentioned this at the end of the junket, but when we did those scenes where we're actually reenacting the brunch, that the events that Nicola puts together all over the country, the young girls and young women that they brought in, they're extras and actresses and performers of different types. It felt like the real event because of the sets and all of the beautiful production design, all of the craftsmanship that went into creating the event, but the meaning of it. It's like we knew we were there to celebrate them.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible what that does. So it's not just about sharing trauma, it's also about celebrating you because you're here.
Right.
And that alone, your existence is reason enough to celebrate, to lavish love. And that's what she does, and I got to experience it. We all did, all of the crew members. It was just a really, it's an experience I'll never forget.
Yeah. And especially at risk, kids need to know that. Need
Yes, they
to know
need to
that.
know they're loved. They are loved for
Absolutely.
everything, for all that they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you were 6 years old, whose idea was it for you to start an acting career and move on into Sesame Street?
Yeah, the way the way that story goes, I I was a very precocious child. I was, I was a kid, I grew up in Long Island and we had chain link fences in between the backyards. And I'd be the kid in the chain link fence, you know, keeping my neighbors. They probably were like, oh my gosh, get this child away from me. But I just saw this movie and blah, 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 and then I have this story and, blah, 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 and now I have kids of my own and my kids are, I'm getting a taste of what it's like constantly telling stories, constantly performing, constantly. And then I kind of got discovered in a mall and just on a whim, like my parents, we kind of did it. Like we went to the audition and I got it. And then that just kept happening. It's interesting because my parents, they were reticent. And I think all throughout my career, they were. Even after I went to college, I graduated and my dad's like, okay, great. So went to Harvard, are you going to go to law school? And I'm like, no, Dad, like I do something. Like I have a craft. I have a vocation.
So he's like,
So
no, wait, I want you to make some money.
right.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
it's something that just kind of, it had its own flow, I think.
Interesting. And do you remember your time on Sesame Street or
Oh,
anything?
yes,
You
I
remember
do.
the whole thing?
I
Cool.
remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
It was very much like preschool on steroids. They had, the kids were backstage, but the backstage area was like a preschool. And
Mm,
as they were filming, they would come in and say, okay, who wants to, do the read along with Big Bird and who wants to do that? And I tend to, yes, I talked a lot, but I was pretty well behaved and a listener. So because of that, I was always one of the kids that, I got to do a piece with Sid Caesar and Carly Simon.
mm.
And um, uh, yeah, so I got to do some really special things. And I remember all of those moments. Like I remember being there and the experience of it. It
Well,
was
that's
great.
cool. That's cool.
Mhm.
So, did you have any struggles in your early career? Um,
I think not early. It was fun, it's just fun. And because my parents weren't really stage parents, like my sisters aren't actors, they might have tried it, but they also tried other things that they loved, or ended up loving more. Um, but because of that, there wasn't that pressure. And so it really was my fun, you know. I didn't really feel have hard times in my career until after I graduated from college. That's when I came back as a young woman. There were some things industry wise that happened and that were hurtful. And it's interesting. I talked about this earlier. It's almost like I could describe it as like a cipher. Like there was something I understood when I would read scripts or rehearse, and it came from a place of like confidence.
mm,
And being in this industry is hard, and I think what happened is that like my confidence got chipped away and I feel like I lost the cipher. Like I didn't,
mm,
I couldn't stand straight and make the kind of decisions you have to make in performance. And I really struggled through that and kept working and working and auditioning and something happened, working on my toolbox, my colors, my access to the things that I need to do what I love. And but I didn't quit. And something feels like over the last maybe 10 years, like the cipher is coming back to,
yeah.
you know, to vision. And now, yes, you struggle through that, but I think that that's also, um, that's also sort of like the luxury of being able to do something that you love for so long, is that you go through these, in the flow, out of the flow, um, periods. And I'm glad to be on the other side of that, though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you got to the other side of that. Of course, you ended up on a Will Smith show, so that's not a bad thing. Of course, he was just sort of in his early days, and uh,
Yes, very.
what'd you think? What was it like to work with him?
Oh my gosh, he is a force. He is, when we first started working on Fresh Prince, he would mouth the words. He would memorize the entire script and kind of mouth the words that I was saying before, on the way. It's because he was remembering when he had to speak. But even with that, he is one of the hardest working people that I've ever met. His, rigor, and he learned it. And beyond that, just has a sort of natural, um, he has the thing, the it thing, and
Uh,
that was always been.
Aura, the it,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever that. Yeah.
Yes, an energy, a desire to connect, a passion and enthusiasm that always has been there.
Mhm. So, you're back on Bel Air, and that's interesting because you're your former self's
Yes.
teacher now. Yeah, you're the teacher of your former self, I should say. So how is this Bel Air sort of preserving the legacy of Fresh Prince?
I think in a couple ways that I see pretty clearly. Um, it takes the relationships that we grew. We were very lucky on Fresh Prince, where we rehearsed, and as a cast with our director, we could try things and then audition them for the writers, and that's unusual, but for some reason that's how it was. And so there are relationship nuances and histories that were never really written on the page, but were created during rehearsal. And one example is like, Philip and Jeffrey, that they had this sort of relationship before the family, this friendship and this dynamic, and so that both of these men were in partnership taking care of this family. And that was never really like written on the page, but it was always it's an undercurrent. It was true, and they've taken that and run with it. So in those ways, there's that I see clearly. And then the other part is Fresh Prince always, the show spoke to, the writers spoke to what was happening.
Mhm.
And, sure, we would turn it into comedy, but we went there. And I think Bel Air is going there. That's what I loved that about Mrs. Hughes and that whole storyline. It's what's happening. It's what people are discussing, and what people in different parts of the country are going through, book banning and all of this.
Yeah,
Um, so I think those two, and those are really core to what the show is.
yeah, absolutely. Are you going to be appearing again, or is this?
Not that I know of. Yeah, not that I know of. I had an amazing experience though. It was really out of this world.
Yeah, I bet. Now I watched you on Young and the Restless. Uh,
Ah,
I did, yeah. What did you, your first soap experience, is that correct?
yes, yes. And in fact, when I had just started, I ran into Vanessa Bell Calloway, and I feel like she was on General Hospital. I can't remember what soap she was on. I think it was General Hospital. And I ran into her something. She's like, "I heard you're on Y&R." And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna try the soap. I don't know, what it's gonna be like." She said, "Let me tell you something." She said, "That is the best training you will ever have. You got to know what you're doing, and you got to do it. And there's no time to play. And she was so right. It was awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
all the time, pages and pages of script, and normally one take. I think
Yes.
several of them do one take now. So
Oh, yes. Oh,
yeah,
yes. You're
yeah.
lucky if you get a second one.
Much of a rehearsal. What do you think
Yeah.
about the actors? I think
Oh,
you worked with
Brighton James.
Brighton James. Yeah.
Yes, we had a ball. I mean, we had a ball. And Roxy would always come up. I'd always be there for events, like a concert or a party or something, which meant that, Brighton and I, we'd have our moment, but then we'd have all day to just be in the back, like cracking up, kikiing, just having so much fun. And we have a lot in common too, because he's a child actor also.
Mhm.
And oh, I just loved working with him, and Crystal as well. I had so much fun with them. I
Yeah.
had so much fun with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so you've almost been married
And
7 years.
Christoph, oh my
Must be.
gosh.
Oh,
And
Christoph. Yeah, that's
what a
uh,
beautiful man.
yeah. I just it makes me sad just to
Mm,
just to still think about that. They
yeah,
mentioned it's nice that the show has given him so many tributes actually. That
yes,
that he won't be forgotten,
yes,
uh,
yes.
as it were. So I think they've handled that, very well. I was going to say you've almost been married 7 years, so that's still honeymoon phase, is it not?
You know what? Kind of, yeah. I know that. I know. Sometimes we'll look at each other and be like, "Whoa, we're like at that mark." Oh, cool. Because he's just awesome. He's my best friend. We have so much fun together.
Yeah. Well, that's great if it is that way. To me,
If
it
it's
should.
that way.
Yeah, to
Yes.
me, it should be that way.
Yes.
And I was reading about him. He's an interesting fella, in case you didn't know. Uh,
Yeah.
no, he's an English professor. Is that correct? He's authored a book or two.
Yes, he's an English professor at Stanford University, and his first book, he's working on a second book now. His first book was Race in the Totalitarian Century, and he's won awards for that. And he's just a brilliant, incredibly kind man. And I don't know, I just, you know, he's an incredible teacher also. And I think we have a lot of fun because we also, he has a whole thought world that, of things he wants to produce and speak about and learn about and
Mhm.
um, contribute. And I give him that space to do that. And I feel like with my work and my art, he gives me the space and the support to do that as well. And it's just really fun.
And so a hectic schedule for both of you. So you sort of schedule time for the kids there.
Oh yeah, no, it's mostly it's mostly, and then we'll get in a date night, or it's like, oh, everybody's asleep. Okay, let's go downstairs and we're gonna watch our show. You know, luckily our youngest is he's 3.5. So we're at that point where it's like when they're asleep, they're asleep.
Well, there you go. There you go. So, what else is going on besides this movie? And you've done Bel Air. What about music?
Oh, music. Um, you know, there's some things I've thought about working on, but they're not at the point yet where it's I should be talking about it, but
I hear that so much.
music is always there. Music is always
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I would love to do a part where, whether it's a musical or there's music involved, singing involved, I would love that. I love when the two come together.
Like a
Um,
Broadway play or
oh, I would love to go back
musical?
to Broadway. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Um, yeah. And I think there have been a feu times live where I've been doing other things like the Black Girls Rock or whatever, and
Mhm.
they gave me a mic, so I started singing. Like, don't do that. Um, but yeah, I love music. I love singing.